What is the best South Island road trip between Nelson and Christchurch? In this video, I'll provide you with two main driving options with must-stop places along the way, plus another travel route most travelers do not know about. My name is Michael, let's get started. So in this video we will be discussing two different travel routes. One is from Nelson through 𝗏𝗏𝗃 to Christchurch, and the second travel route is going from Nelson through Blenheim and Kaikoura down to Christchurch. So let's start with option number one through 𝗏𝗏𝗃. So as we can see here on the Google map, we have a distance of about 409 kilometers and about 5 hours drive. As usually with Google Map, we need to add 10 to 15%. So in my experience, you can expect about 6 hours drive. So you depart Nelson southward on the SH6, State Highway 6. You're going through Brightwater, Wakefield towards Kohatu. So you continue further south, and there's one little detour you might want to consider, which is actually going through 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃. So just in the village of Belgrove, you turn off State Highway 6 and head towards 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃 and the Nelson Lakes National Park. So if you go through 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃, you can reconnect again with State Highway 6. So you're mainly traveling along SH6 into Murchison, which I do recommend to have a stop. It's a kind of a country village, public toilets, there are coffee facilities as well as petrol station. So after Murchison, you continue along the Buller River here and you come to the key junction where you can head either over to the west coast, continue SH6, or you continue southwards on SH6-5 towards Christchurch. And here's the first key stop. It's called Marua Falls. Let's have a look at the pictures. So Marua Falls are directly located next to the main highway. There's a little car park, so it's very easy to stop and you can get those kinds of beautiful scenery along the countryside here in central South Island. The falls were created apparently through an earthquake in the 1920s. It's all very well signposted. As you can see, it's only about 10 minutes return, so it's an easy stop. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button below to stay connected for more helpful New Zealand travel videos. You can also download our free New Zealand travel planning sheet in the description box below. So after the falls, you continue south. Shortly after, you're passing Marua River Retreat, which is a really cool boutique accommodation. In my job as a travel designer, I do recommend and book people into that property. It's a lovely spot. So after Springs Junction, you continue on SH7, and there's a spot I would recommend you to stop. So this is Everson Wall. This was apparently built in 1964 to check the movements of the earth plates which are running below the South Island. So over the last 60 years, as you can see, nothing has moved. So it's quite a cool site. So as you can see, after Everson Wall, you can also do a little walk. This is there's a little bridge over the river, and you can walk as long as you want to. It's very scenic. Beach forest, classic New Zealand beach forest. So this is a good place to stop. Now continue the Marua River, and coming across here, there's another kind of a hot springs. I mean, obviously, because of the geotectonic movement underground, there's a lot of hot springs around in the area. So Marua Springs is one of those. You can also stay there. It's another accommodation place. And this is also not far away from 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃. 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 is one of the four main alpine passes over the Southern Alps. It's 907 meters high. Isn't that stunning? So this is just after the 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃. There's a large car park. There's a little lake. It's very well established, so well worth a few minutes. There's also a Department of Conservation sign. As you can see, there's the St. James Walkway. It's part of the St. James Walkway, which is a multi-day hike, but yeah, you don't have to do that. So after the 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃 stop, you continue along the Hope River, then the Waiau River, and just as straightforward. There are no settlements here. So the first place really you come across is Hanmer Springs. you have to turn off. Hanmer Springs is about 10 kilometers away or so from the main road, but Hanmer Springs is another key location. Again, hot springs, lots of activities. As you can see, there's a jet boating, there's a large bridge. They used to have bungee jump as well. I'm not sure if they still have it, but yeah, well worth a stop as well. So now you continue towards the Haranui area. We're getting into the 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝘁𝗲 wine region. So that's North Canterbury. So as you can see, the landscape has now really transformed into a much more open place. There's an old railway, the 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝘁𝗲 railway. It's no longer in use, but it used to be quite important in the old days. But this is now much more barren. Right, so we're now in the 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝘁 area. Again, as I mentioned before, this is a beautiful wine country. They are really famous for their Rieslings, so keep that in mind. And you continue basically on the main highway 1 towards Christchurch, which is another 30 or 40 kilometers away. Also feel free to leave any questions or feedback in the comments box below. Now let's move on to the second option between Nelson and Christchurch. This time we're going through Blenheim and Kaikoura. As you can see, the driving time is 5 hours 45 minutes, 431 kilometers. Again, you need to add 10 to 15% for the driving time, so at least 6.5 to 7 hours. So this is a long trip. You may want to consider to shorten it up, especially with all the places you can see in between. Like my suggestion would be Kaikoura, but let's go through in detail and you can make up your mind. So first of all, when you're traveling out of Nelson, you basically traveling along the Tasman Bay, which is part of the Tasman Sea, and the first part is going through towards Ray Valley, and it's quite windy here, going through Hira. The first place I would like you to consider to stop is Pelurut's Bridge. Let's have a look at some pictures. So this is the view towards the Pelurus river from the bridge. Here is the bridge. So this is a cool spot. There's a large car park. There is also a kind of a public toilet, and there's a number of walks you can take, some of them an hour or so, even less. It just depends how much time you have. So I highly recommend to stop here. It's also one of the Hobbiton filming locations, so it has become quite famous for that. So after Pelurus Bridge, you continue towards Havelock, and Havelock is kind of one of the gateways into the Marlborough Sounds. One of the key attractions here in Havelock is going out into the Marlborough Sounds, into the mussel farms, which are located here in the fjords, here in the Sounds. Here's also a cool little museum. Again, with many of these villages in New Zealand, there's always something to discover. So after Havelock, you continue on SH6 and you hit the wine region of Marlborough. So Marlborough is the key wine region in New Zealand. There's around about 150 vineyards. So you could arrive here and you could maybe have lunch even. There's a couple of places like Cloudy Bay or Alan Scott. They do lunches during the week. You don't necessarily need to make a reservation, but definitely on the weekends. Often they're closed on Mondays, so keep that in mind. There's also another place I would like to recommend you having a stop. It's 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 Aviation Heritage Center. So this has all to do with aircraft, a bit of war history as well. Sir Peter Jackson had his hand into this. There's a lot of beautiful constructions, and the whole story is told so well in respect of the aircraft and how history has turned out. So if you have any interest in that kind of thing, highly recommend to stop. 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 Aviation Heritage Center. Traveling through Blenheim, which is a decent sized city, going towards the eastern side of the South Island. This is basically the Pacific Ocean we're heading towards. And there's one spot you come across which seemed to be it looks a little bit odd on the left-hand side. It's actually the salt works. So this is the place where the table salt, salt we're using in our food, is actually produced. Seawater is dried and then they harvest the salt. So again, the drive is pretty much straightforward on SH1 until you hit the Pacific Ocean. This is a magnificent sight. They don't have a picture here at the moment, but I'll show you a couple of others later. This is one of the most beautiful drives in New Zealand. So you just continue here on SH1, and here's the first kind of place you can stop. Let's have a look at some pictures. So you see the railway line in the foreground, the black sand beaches, and you have the Kaikoura range in the background here. And these are the kind of views you get on a fine day looking out into the Pacific Ocean. That's pretty much what you continue driving along. Let's continue further south, and we have Kaikoura here, which has the store. The store is located right on the beach, and you can have beautiful lunch, coffees along the way, and just enjoy the scenery at the same time. Quite rustic. It's been around for many years. There have been a few ownership changes, but it's a beautiful place, again, right on the main road. So the next stop I want to point out is located just after the Waiau River Bridge. It's called 𝗤𝗏𝗃𝗃. So 𝗤𝗏𝗃 Bay Beach is again located right on the main road, and there's actually a lobster place. So Ōraka Lobster is a place where you can shop crayfish. We call it crayfish, lobster. It's found on the coast. Actually, the name Kaikoura means kai is food, koura is lobster. So this is one of the key places in New Zealand where you find lobster, crayfish. People stop here and have lunch, bit of history explained as well. 𝗤𝗏𝗃𝗃 Bay Beach. So you continue traveling south. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of places you can stop. Here's another one. Let's have a quick look at some of these stunning pictures. So you get a feeling about what the coastline is all about here. One of the attractions, obviously, is the New Zealand fur seal. There are many of them. There's a number of seal colonies here, and some of the stops you do, you can actually see them really close by. Highly encouraged not to approach them. It's wildlife after all. You can see them and smell them actually from a few meters away. So the next place is Ōhau Point Lookout. Again, beautiful place to stop. Continue south, and you're pretty much now heading into Kaikoura. North of Kaikoura, we have the Hapuku River. There's a number of accommodations, very beautiful. Some of them are quite upmarket, like Hapuku Lodge. There's some more cottage styles here, but the factory down here, there's a couple of those. So it's not far away. It's only about 5 to 10 kilometers into Kaikoura. So some people prefer to stay a little bit outside town. There's also bed and breakfast. Here we also have the Kaikoura Peninsula. This is a cool place to do some walks. You can do a whole loop around here, or you can just go over to the seal colonies, which are located here. There's a car park at the end of the peninsula. So yeah, I mean, there's also, again, some accommodations, or tourism is quite big in this area. So you see a number of options here. But let's have a bit of a look on the activities. So first of all, we have the Kaikoura Whale Watch, and that's what most people come to. Let's have a look at some pictures. So Kaikoura really lives and breathes with the Whale Watch. These tours are running at least about 30 years now. And in the late 80s, boats seem to get bigger, and people still love it. Those whales that come up. There have to be certain sea conditions, but I mean that's another video really to talk about the different tours in Kaikoura. We'll do that. But yeah, it's a stunning sight. You have the Kaikoura range in the background, and you also have dolphins here. You can see a school of dolphins. So that's another tour people do when they come to Kaikoura. So here's the dolphin encounter. Other trips you can do in Kaikoura is kayaking. You can do swimming with seals. So it's pretty much a hub here. You can easily spend a day or two. I actually recommend to spend 2 nights so you have a full day. But it all depends on the time budget you have. The drive between Nelson and Christchurch could easily be broken up here in Kaikoura. So after Kaikoura, we pretty much continue further south, again along the coast road. It's just a stunning drive. And then you head a little bit further inland, and you basically go into the northern Canterbury region, the 𝗏𝗏𝗃 region, what we already discussed with the vineyards. There's a couple of townships you might want to stop and refresh. Here, 𝗟𝗏𝗃 is one of them. Some people go down to 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗁, but this is pretty much a local's place. You know, from people from Christchurch have maybe a holiday badge here. So yeah, you continue further south, crossing the Horanui River and pretty much heading into Christchurch, which is only about 35 kilometers away or so. Now, I promised you a third road option between Nelson and Christchurch, and this one goes through Molesworth station. This is only for experienced travelers which are a little bit more into adventures. You're basically traveling into Blenheim, you passing through, and then there's a road into the Molesworth station. You need to be aware that the Molesworth Station Road is partly public and partly only with permission. So you need to apply for that with the Department of Conservation. The road is only open during the summer period. You find all the details in this Department of Conservation page, which I will link in the description box below. So again, this is for experienced travelers. You can either travel with a car, they will not allow caravans, or you can go with a motorbike. A lot of that track is unsealed, so you also need to double check with your rental car company if they allow you driving this road. But this is a out of this world place. There's a number of stops obviously you can do. This is my third road option between Nelson and Christchurch. And you would connect basically through Hanmer Springs and then connect into the 𝗏𝗏𝗃 region, which we discussed before. As you can see, there's so much to discover when traveling between Nelson and Christchurch. As usually, my key recommendation is to take your time as much as possible and absorb those beautiful spots in New Zealand. Check out my other New Zealand road trip videos, which are listed in the playlists in the description box below. Plus, download my free New Zealand travel planning sheet, which will help you greatly when planning your holiday. Please hit the subscribe button below and thumbs up to stay connected for more helpful New Zealand travel tips. See you in the next video.